The cake sat in the center of the conference table, glowing with enough candles to practically set off the fire alarm. Through the flickering flames, I could read the message smeared in neon blue icing. Bye-bye, burden. To Phoebe, finally getting shipped away where she can't pull us down anymore. Tate clinked his plastic champagne flute against Nana's, splashing cheap bubbly across the table. 3 years of hauling your dead weight is officially done. The whole marketing team burst into laughter as I stood frozen in the doorway. Someone had taped cutouts of anchor symbols to my now empty desk chair. Get it? Drew shouted, pointing at the decorations. Because you've been dragging this team under since day one. Nina tossed back her drink and refilled instantly. Remember when she suggested we focus on customer retention instead of new acquisitions, like Hello Basic Economics? She mocked my voice with a screeching whine that sounded nothing like me. Or when she pushed that project management system, Leah groaned. 2 weeks of her color-coded spreadsheets before we trashed the whole thing. Tate lifted his voice over the giggles. Let's not forget her quarterly presentations. Guys, I've literally taken naps during them and still didn't miss anything meaningful. My knuckles tightened around the cardboard box holding my desk plants and spare sweater. I'd known they disliked me, but witnessing their raw contempt hit differently. The mask had fully fallen now that they believed I was being exiled to the Rochester office, a transfer they saw as a demotion and practical banishment. Toast, Petra called, my supervisor, standing dramatically on a chair, to whatever unlucky team has to put up with Phoebe next. May they possess endless patience and rock-bottom expectations. To freedom, someone yelled. I stepped fully into the room, their faces stiffening briefly before the smirks returned. Wider, harsher. Oh, come on, Phoebe, Petra laughed, noticing my expression. It's just office humor. Can't you take a joke? This is exactly why you never blended in here. Drew shoved a slice of cake at me, frosting smearing across the paper plate. At least eat some cake before you vanish forever. We spent almost $30 on it. I accepted the plate, scanning the faces around me. I accepted the plate, studying the expressions of people who'd spent 3 years crushing my ideas, talking over me in meetings, stealing my work, and now rejoicing that they'd never see me again. Thanks for the send-off, I said softly. Petra smirked. Any final words of wisdom before you leave? I looked around the room one last time, committing each face, each smirk to memory. Then I placed my untouched cake down. Just one thing, I said, my voice unwavering. I'll see you all on Monday. Confusion rippled across the room as I walked out, leaving my farewell cake behind. None of them grasped what I meant. None of them knew my transfer wasn't to Rochester. None of them had the slightest clue that at 9 a.m. Monday morning, I'd be stepping into my new corner office at headquarters as Vice President of Marketing Operations, directly supervising their entire division. The elevator doors shut on their baffled faces, and for the first time in 3 years, I allowed myself a real smile. If you're enjoying this workplace revenge story so far, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you hooked. Comment below if you've ever had coworkers underestimate you. I read every comment. My name is Phoebe Marsh. I'm 34, meticulous to a fault, and the kind of person who organizes her sock drawer by shade. I've always been the quiet one in the room, the observer, the note-taker, the one who speaks last and least. Not because I lack thoughts, but because I prefer to understand every angle before offering an opinion. 3 years ago, I joined the marketing team at Westridge with a reputation for revitalizing struggling departments. My former company gave me glowing recommendations after I streamlined their operations and doubled their conversion rates in 18 months. I arrived at Westridge expecting to do the same: analyze, optimize, overhaul. What I hadn't anticipated was the cultural shock. From the first day, the Westridge marketing team functioned like a high school popularity contest. Meetings were shouting matches where the loudest voice won. Strategy came down to whoever had the flashiest lunch date with senior management. Results mattered less than who claimed credit for them. I tried adjusting at first. I spoke up more in meetings only for Tate or Nina to talk over me. I proposed process improvements, which Petra would reject publicly, then quietly implement weeks later as her own ideas. I stayed late reviewing campaign data, while the others mingled at happy hours I somehow never got invited to. For 3 years, I was invisible when it suited them, and a scapegoat whenever anything collapsed. The Middletown campaign crashed because Phoebe didn't provide adequate research, Petra told the division head, even though my report, which none of them actually read, had clearly warned against the strategy they insisted on. The isolation was intentional and precise. Team lunches were planned without me. Invites hit my calendar only after the events ended. Project successes were celebrated behind my back, and every failure was pinned on me during performance reviews. "You're just not a culture fit," Petra would repeat, insisting I needed to be more of a team player, which really meant laugh at their jokes, follow their rules, and never outshine them. I nearly quit a dozen times, sitting in my car each morning rehearsing resignation speeches, but something stubborn inside me refused to give them that satisfaction. Instead, I did what I excel at. I observed, documented, and strategized. While they were busy undermining me, I quietly mapped the entire department, tracking which campaigns thrived and why, noting which clients were slipping due to neglect, building shadow systems showing what the team could achieve if run properly, and keeping records of everything, every stolen idea, every misplaced accusation, every manufactured failure. Then 6 months ago, something unexpected happened when the CEO, EMTT Kirill, made an unannounced visit. While Petra and her circle scrambled to fake a presentation, I ended up alone in the elevator with him. "Rough morning?" he asked, noticing the coffee stain Drew had caused earlier, and I made a split-second choice. Actually, rough 3 years. In the 40-second ride, I didn't complain. I outlined 3 major flaws in our marketing approach and offered clear solutions. "Interesting," he said as the doors opened. 2 weeks later, I received an email inviting me to headquarters to meet the executive team. I told no one, claiming I had a dentist appointment. And I presented a full, data-driven breakdown of our department's weaknesses, along with my vision for restructuring. I avoided the social drama entirely and stayed strictly professional. When they offered me the VP role, I had one condition. My team should be told I was being transferred laterally to the Rochester office. The HR director called it an unusual request. I simply said I had my reasons. And so the fiction was created. Petra and the others believed I was being shipped off to a struggling satellite office where underperformers were quietly phased out. They never verified it. They were too busy celebrating my exit. Which brings us back to that farewell party. As I drove home from that mockery, I didn't feel anger, just a cold, crystalline clarity. For 3 years they had shown me exactly who they were when they assumed I didn't matter. On Monday, they would finally see how closely I had been paying attention. The weekend rushed by as I prepared. I reviewed personnel files, performance data, and project histories, drafted a 90-day restructuring plan, and chose a charcoal gray suit I'd never worn to the office. By Sunday night, everything was ready, and I slept better than I had in years. Monday morning arrived with a soft chime from my alarm. I dressed carefully, applied minimal makeup, and twisted my hair into a simple, elegant style. The woman in the mirror looked entirely different, poised, confident, powerful. I arrived at headquarters at 7:30 a.m., stepping into a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that didn't come from a bargain catalog. My name was already on the door: Phoebe Marsh, Vice President of Marketing Operations. I had it schedule a video conference with my former team for 9 a.m., officially to introduce them to their new VP, but in truth to witness their reactions when the truth landed. As the clock neared 9, my phone buzzed with a text from Nina. "Hope Rochester's treating you well. Petra's having us meet some new hotshot VP this morning. Probably another middle-aged guy with a golf handicap, she joked. Wish you were here to suffer through it with us. JK. I placed my phone face down on the desk and opened my laptop. At exactly 9 a.m., I launched the video call. One by one, their faces loaded on the screen, clustered in the same conference room where they'd celebrated my departure. 3 days earlier, the bye-bye burden cake was gone, but someone had forgotten to remove one of the anchor decorations. It swayed gently behind Petra's head like a pendulum. "Good morning, everyone," I said, my voice firm and steady. "Thank you for joining this call." I watched confusion ripple across their expressions as they recognized me. Petra blinked rapidly. Drew's mouth dropped open. Nina gripped her coffee mug so hard I thought it might crack. "There seems to be some misunderstanding," Petra said, forcing out a laugh. "Phoebe, aren't you supposed to be in Rochester? This call is scheduled with our new VP of Marketing Operations." "That's correct," I replied. "This call is with your new VP of Marketing Operations. That would be me." The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear the wall clock ticking in their conference room through the feed. "This is a joke," Tate finally muttered, glancing around for reassurance. "Right? This has to be some weird prank." "No joke," I said. "As of this morning, I am the Vice President of Marketing Operations, overseeing all regional marketing teams, including yours." Petra's face drained of color. But you were transferred. We were told—" "You were told exactly what you expected to hear," I cut in smoothly, "and none of you bothered verifying it, which, coincidentally, is just one example of the lack of due diligence I'll be addressing in my restructuring plan." Drew shot to his feet. "This is absurd. I'm calling EMTT." "Please do," I answered. "He's expecting your call. In fact, he specifically asked me how I thought you'd all react to this news." Nina set down her mug, coffee spilling over the rim. "Phoebe, about Friday, the party, we were just—" "Let's keep this professional," I interrupted. "We have a lot to cover this morning and I'm not interested in revisiting the party. That's behind us. I'm far more focused on the future." I shared my screen, revealing a detailed organizational chart. "You'll notice several changes effective immediately. Reporting lines have been revised based on performance metrics and project outcomes from the past 2 years." The chart displayed a massive reshuffling. Petra no longer led the team. Tate and Nina had been placed on separate projects under new supervisors, and Drew had been reassigned entirely. "This can't be legal," Petra sputtered. "You can't just come in and—" "I can, and I have," I said. "These changes have been approved at the highest level. But don't worry, Petra. No one is being terminated today." I paused, letting that settle before adding, "Though after reviewing the performance reports, some of you may wish you were." I clicked to the next slide. "Now, let's review the first phase of our departmental transformation. We'll begin with a full audit of all active projects, client communications, and resource allocations. I expect complete transparency and cooperation from everyone." The faces on my screen displayed varying degrees of shock, outrage, and dread. These were the same people who had belittled me for 3 years, convinced I would never have the authority to influence their careers. They had underestimated me, dismissed my capabilities, and reveled in my supposed downfall. Now they were starting to realize their mistake. "One more thing," I said, my finger hovering over the button to end the call. "I'll be working primarily from headquarters, but I'll be visiting the regional office every Wednesday. Our first in-person meeting will be this week. I suggest you arrive prepared to discuss your individual contributions over the past year, with specific examples, of course." I smiled. Not warm, not cold, simply professional. "Any questions before we conclude this initial meeting?" No one answered. 20 pairs of eyes stared back at me in stunned silence. "Excellent," I said. "Then I'll see you all on Wednesday. Have a productive day." I ended the call and leaned back in my chair, heart pounding though my expression remained composed. Phase 1 was done. They knew who I was now. What they didn't know, what they couldn't imagine, was what I had planned for them next. Because the restructuring chart I'd shown them, that was only the beginning. My office phone rang precisely 16 minutes after the call ended. Petra's name flashed across the screen. I let it go to voicemail. 9 minutes later, she called again, then Nina, then Tate. By noon, I had 17 missed calls and 23 unread emails from my former team. I replied to none of them. Instead, I spent the remainder of the day meeting with other department heads, reviewing quarterly projections, and finalizing my strategy for Wednesday's in-person visit. Every couple of hours, I refreshed the activity logs for our project management system. The regional office was suddenly humming with productivity. Files that hadn't been touched in months were being updated, reports were being finalized, long-forgotten client conversations were being revived. Incredible what the right pressure could inspire. At 5:17 p.m., my personal phone buzzed, a number I had never shared with anyone from work. It was Petra. "How did you get this number?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. "I have my methods," she replied, trying to sound relaxed. "Listen, Phoebe, I think we started off wrong this morning." I stayed silent, letting the pause grow heavy. "The party, it wasn't what it seemed," she rushed on, her words speeding up. "It was just goofy office humor. We do that with everyone. Remember when Zach from accounting transferred? We gave him a calculator stuck on the number 8. It's a tradition." "Was Zach's calculator decorated with tombstones too?" I asked softly. "That was Drew's joke, not mine," she stammered. "Look, I know things weren't always smooth between us, but I've always appreciated your analytical style." I shut my eyes, recalling every time she'd called my methods obsessive and pointlessly meticulous in front of clients. "Is there something you actually want, Petra?" "I have dinner plans." "Actually, yes," she said, her voice warming with fake friendliness. "I was hoping we could meet before Wednesday. Just you and me, to align on vision and strategy. I have some brilliant restructuring ideas that would perfectly complement your direction." "I'm sure you do," I replied. "But I'm fully booked until Wednesday. I'll see you at the office at 9 sharp." "Good night, Petra." I hung up and turned toward my computer again. On the screen was the personnel record I'd been examining. Petra's performance history, including the glowing evaluations she'd written for herself compared to the feedback her team submitted. The contradictions were telling. For 3 years, Petra had painted herself as the team's core creative engine while reducing my contributions to purely technical support. What she never realized was that I'd been tracking everything. Every stolen idea, every miscredited win, every contrived failure pinned on me. I hadn't done it out of vengeance. Documenting was simply who I was, the same overly detailed approach she loved to mock. Now those details would become crucial. Tuesday swept by in a whirlwind of preparation. I met with HR about the regional office's troubling turnover. I reviewed client feedback that had mysteriously avoided official reports. I approved a full audit of all marketing campaigns from the last 2 years, with special focus on resource use and credit for results. By Tuesday night, my inbox was packed with frantic messages from nearly everyone on the team. Most followed the same script: claims that they'd always respected me, excuses for past behavior, and thin attempts to paint themselves as allies. Only Drew stayed quiet, though his project files showed desperate activity as he tried to fix months of ignored work. Wednesday morning came with a crystal-clear sky and unusual warmth for early spring. I chose my outfit intentionally, a tailored navy dress purchased just for this moment. Professional yet assured, I drove to the regional office with the windows down, letting the breeze steady my thoughts. The security guard blinked in surprise when I scanned in. "Ms. Marsh, I thought you'd moved to Rochester." "Plans changed," I said with a smile. The elevator ride to the 4th floor gave me a few seconds to ground myself. When the doors slid open, I stepped into a completely altered atmosphere. Gone was the typical morning chatter. Instead, 20 people sat stiffly at their desks, eyes flicking nervously toward the elevator. I walked calmly past Tate, who suddenly found his computer fascinating. Na stood up quickly, coffee in hand, mouth parting as if to speak, but I moved past without pause. My old desk had been cleared of the anchor decorations and now displayed a painfully obvious welcome back sign. I continued to the conference room, where I found Petra already waiting, surrounded by neatly arranged presentation props and a tray of pastries that had never appeared at any meeting before. Phoebe, sorry, Ms. Marsh, or do you prefer VP Marsh? She laughed awkwardly. I took the liberty of preparing some visuals for our discussion today. And there's coffee coming, the good kind from that place you mentioned once. I placed my laptop at the head of the table, her usual spot. Everyone will arrive in 5 minutes. Until then, I want to review something with you privately. Her smile wavered. Of course, anything. I opened a folder and slid a document across the table. This is an analysis of the Brightline campaign from last year. Her eyes skimmed the page, confusion surfacing. Right. The Brightline campaign, one of our major wins according to your report to upper management. Yes. You claimed an 18% surge in conversions and credited the results to what you described as your innovative segmentation method. That's correct, she said eagerly. My approach really transformed how we... She started before I cut her off, sliding another document across the table. This is my original proposal for that campaign, submitted 3 weeks before yours, and you'll notice the segmentation strategy is identical down to the percentage allocations. Her face drained of color. There must be a mistake. Great minds think alike, right? Perhaps, I replied, placing a third document in front of her. But these are the actual campaign results, not an 18% increase, but a 4% rise that barely covered the extra ad spend you approved without sign-off. The conference room door creaked open as team members filed in, and Petra hastily grabbed the papers, shoved them into a folder, and forced a cheerful smile. Welcome, everyone, she announced brightly. Exciting day with our new VP. I watched them settle, Na slipping into the seat beside me like always, Tate choosing a spot mid-table, trying to disappear, and Drew slinking in last to sit farthest from me. Thank you all for coming, I said once everyone was seated. Today begins major changes for this department. For the next hour, I detailed my restructuring plan, projects reassigned based on real skills rather than self-promotion, reporting lines simplified for clarity, success metrics redefined to reward actual outcomes instead of showmanship. Additionally, I continued, I've identified troubling patterns in how credit has been claimed for wins and how responsibility has been diverted for failures. The room seemed to chill. From now on, every contribution will be logged through our updated management system. Weekly progress reports will come directly to me and attribution will be transparent. Na raised a hand. Isn't that a bit much? It might affect creativity. Interesting comment, I said, especially from someone who claimed credit for the Westlake rebrand that was primarily created by Zoe. Zoe looked up, startled. That's not... I mean, Zoe helped, but the idea was mine, Na stammered. The timestamp on the original concept file says otherwise, I replied, as does the revision history showing your input came only after the client had approved Zoe's design. Na sank back, flushed. Any other concerns? Silence. Good. Let's move to individual roles. I laid out new assignments, rightful promotions for quiet high performers, lateral shifts removing inflated titles, and significant demotions for Petra, Na, Tate, and Drew. Petra will move from team director to client relations specialist, focusing solely on accounts she hasn't lost this year. Petra's face twisted. You can't do this. I've been director 5 years. Client retention only dropped 22%. Exactly, I said calmly. Your strengths lie elsewhere. I'll fight this, she hissed. EMTT and I go way back. Feel free, I replied. He approved all of this after reviewing the same data. Na was reassigned from creative lead to content writer, Tate lost project management and was moved to analytics, the department he'd mocked for years, and Drew now reported to Zoe, whose ideas he'd been stealing. By the end, the entire power order had flipped. These changes take effect immediately, I concluded. Access updates are complete, and your revised roles are in your inbox. I shut my laptop. If anyone feels they can't adapt, resignations are welcome. I'll ensure references reflect your actual contributions. The threat beneath the politeness was unmistakable. That's all. Zoe, you're first at 1 p.m. As the group slipped out in stunned silence, Petra lingered. You won't get away with this, she whispered, voice sharp and dangerous. You think you've won? This isn't over. I met her eyes steadily without flinching. You're right about one thing, Petra. This isn't over. In fact, it's only just beginning. The air between us practically buzzed as I gathered my materials, 3 years of dismissal, theft, and quiet sabotage converging into this single moment. But instead of the triumphant thrill I once imagined during darker days, there was no rush of victory, no vindictive high, only something far stronger: purpose. Because this wasn't revenge, this was correction. A rebuilding of a broken system, restoring the department it should have been, where work outweighed politics, where depth mattered more than theatrics, where real talent finally had room to breathe. And if the people who'd tormented me suffered along the way, that was merely the natural cost of justice. Your one-on-one is at 4 p.m., I told Petra as I moved toward the door. Don't be late. I care about punctuality. When I stepped into the hallway, 20 pairs of eyes darted aside, pretending they hadn't been watching the conference room. The next stage of my plan was about to unfold, and none of them had the faintest idea. The afternoon moved like a precisely arranged chess game, each one-on-one revealing another layer of strategy. I began with Zoe and the other quiet performers long overlooked. Their meetings were short, encouraging, focused on possibility rather than old grievances. They left my temporary office standing straighter, finally recognized. As hours passed, the energy in the department tightened, whispers halted as I walked by. Tate paced outside before his session, muttering excuses I heard through the thin wall. Come in, I called exactly on time. He entered wearing an expression I'd never seen on him before. Fear. Sit, Tate. Let's discuss your new analytics role. Look, VP Marsh, there's been a misunderstanding, he babbled. Every time I interrupted you in meetings, I was just excited, trying to help refine your ideas. That tracker I said would fail. I just wanted to challenge you. I let the lies spill for 90 seconds before lifting my hand. I'm not here to rewrite history. I'm here to get results. I turned my monitor. This is your new performance dashboard. Every task, deadline, deliverable, tracked and visible to the entire team. His eyes stretched wide. You can't expect anyone to work under that pressure. Curious, I said. You've often bragged that you carry triple the workload of anyone here. This simply verifies your claims with data. That's different. Creative work can't be measured. You're not in creative anymore, I reminded him. You're in analytics, where everything is measured. His face went crimson. This is personal. You're punishing me because of your performance metrics, I finished, sliding a folder over. 3 major projects late in 6 months, clients complaining about incorrect data, repeatedly taking credit for others' work. That's not fair. Everyone does that. That's how the game works. The game has new rules, I said simply. You can play by them or find another table. By late afternoon, the pattern was unmistakable. Each person who'd undermined me now faced a role tailored exactly to their documented weaknesses. Nina, who mocked my writing, now produced content going through 3 approval layers. Drew, who called my designs basic, now answered to Zoe, whose ideas he'd stolen. At 3:58, I prepped for my final meeting. Petra arrived 2 minutes early, composed, calculating, the shock replaced by her usual talent. Adaptation. She'd survived. Corporate jungles by morphing into whatever was needed. "I've been reflecting on your feedback," she said smoothly. "You're absolutely right. We need accountability. I'm eager to strengthen client relations." Her pivot was impressive, if transparent. "Glad to hear it," I replied neutrally, "especially since client retention will be your sole performance metric from now on." Her smile twitched. "Only metric? Surely my strategy expertise won't apply to your new role," I finished. "You'll be handling the Hudson account exclusively." The color drained from her face. "Hudson? They've threatened to leave for months. They're impossible." "Yes," I agreed, "particularly since you blamed their last campaign's failure on technical execution instead of your flawed strategy." "That's not—" "I spoke with their CMO yesterday," I continued, "explained the restructuring, promised you would personally oversee every detail going forward. They've agreed to give us one final chance, with you as their sole point of contact." Her polished facade fractured. "You're setting me up to fail. Hudson is hopeless." "Then treat it as your opportunity to prove your client relation abilities," I said calmly, opening her file. "Now, there's another matter we need to address: the Bright Line campaign data discrepancy." "Look, I may have rounded some numbers," she began, but I cut her off. "You inflated results by 14% and claimed credit for a strategy you didn't develop. I corrected it, which explains why the audit team will be here tomorrow morning." Her eyes went wide. "Audit team from headquarters? They'll review all campaign reports from the past 3 years, comparing claimed results with actual performance data?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Standard procedure, right?" she stammered. "Everyone adjusts numbers to tell the right story." "Not anymore," I replied. "This audit was EMTT's idea, actually, after I showed him the bright line discrepancies." Her breathing quickened. "This is a witch hunt." "No," I corrected. "It's accountability. The audit team is independent. They'll find what they find. And if there are issues with my reporting," I shrugged, "that's between you and the compliance committee." For the first time, real fear flickered in her eyes. This wasn't about demotions or restructuring anymore. This was about professional integrity. "You planned this," she whispered. "The quiet act, the detailed notes, the perfect employee routine, it all led here." "No, Petra," I said, leaning forward. "You've been creating this moment for 3 years. I just documented it." The weight of realization hit her. Every shortcut, stolen idea, manipulated number surfacing inescapably. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "Just tell me what it will take to make this go away." "Nothing goes away," I replied. "The audit happens tomorrow. Your new role begins immediately. The consequences of your past actions will unfold as they unfold." "So this is your revenge," she said bitterly. "This isn't revenge," I corrected. "This is restoration. For 3 years, this department rewarded the wrong things: self-promotion over substance, politics over performance, volume over value. I'm restoring balance." I closed her file. "You still have choices, Petra. Resign today, stay and succeed in your new role, face the audit and accept what comes. But you cannot continue as before. None of you can." She rose slowly, composure shattered. "You won't last. They'll see through you eventually." "Perhaps," I said. "But by then, the systems I've implemented will be firmly in place. The culture will have shifted. The department will operate fundamentally differently, with or without me." As she reached the door, I added, "One last thing, Petra. The goodbye party decorations? Keep them. You might need them sooner than you think." The audit team arrived promptly at 9 a.m. Thursday. By noon, they requested access to all campaign files from the past 3 years. By Friday afternoon, Petra, Nina, and two other senior members had resigned rather than face the audit's conclusions. Tate lasted 2 weeks in analytics before quitting. Drew hung on longer but eventually transferred after failing to meet Zoe's clearly documented expectations. 1 month after my goodbye party, the marketing department was nearly unrecognizable. New talent promoted, collaboration replacing political games, client satisfaction rising. On a rainy Tuesday, 6 weeks after becoming VP, I found a small box on my desk with a plastic cake topper, the anchor decoration from my farewell celebration, and a note in Zoe's handwriting. Found this while cleaning storage. Thought you'd appreciate the reminder of how far we've come. I smiled, placing the anchor in my drawer, not as a memento of humiliation, but as a symbol of transformation, both for the department and myself. That afternoon, EMTT emailed to meet about the remarkable turnaround. The audit had exposed years of misreported results and misattributed credit, revealing structural problems now systematically addressed. Reflecting on the past 6 weeks, I realized my so-called revenge hadn't been about destroying careers. It was about building a department where achievement mattered, where credit went to those who earned it, and accountability was standard, not punishment. The most satisfying revenge wasn't seeing tormentors fall. It was creating something better from the ruins they left behind, knowing too late they'd underestimated me all along. They'd celebrated my departure, never imagining I would return as the architect of their professional futures, proving that quiet, methodical, undeniable results, just as I had always worked, were more powerful than politics or manipulation. If you've ever been overlooked or underestimated, remember, the best response isn't immediate confrontation. It's patient documentation and strategic planning. The greatest satisfaction comes not from what you do to others, but from what you build for yourself. Drop a comment if you've faced a workplace like Phoebe's, and subscribe for more stories of justice served with perfect timing, because success is the best revenge, and success with receipts is simply unbeatable.